called Great Giza Pyramid. What you see here is the three pyramids on the plateau. The largest one, from its base to its highest elevation, is about 450 feet. If extended to its apex, which is where this is, this one is 480 feet because it's at a higher elevation, ground level. This particular pyramid, its highest elevation is half the distance between the top of the Great Giza Pyramid and ground level, and it sits at approximately 215 feet. The elevation of this is actually a little bit higher than the elevation of this because the whole plateau is on an angle, with the Nile being at its base. The Sphinx is at an elevation approximately down here in respect to that, and the Osiris shaft, the opening of it, is at an elevation approximately there, but extends down well below it to, even today, what is the water table of the entire area, which is why it's always wet down there. Now, this is the ground for the entire system. What the system does, the containment vessel does, is it brings the water down into this system, breaks it into its respective gases, the oxygen being vented back out, in doing so because it has to bubble through the rocks, creating a positive air pressure there, lowering the water level within the structure down. The upper section here, the hydrogen is brought up, joined in what they like to call the king's chamber, coming through the floor, that's the back flash arrestor, into the system, where it is joined with the ambient air from outside. You've got 21% oxygen, and you've got 78% nitrogen. Takes that oxygen, rejoins it, create water. That water basically flows through the system, coming down into the system, and it pools down in the system here. The ambient water level on the outside of the system is approximately 1/3 of the way up the hallway of the Queen's Chamber, and then, or what I would call the Ark Chamber, and the water level settles in the system at being just below the floor line of the water level because of how this brings the system to a lower elevation. The ambient air pressure within the system is actually at a negative air pressure because of how, when water cools and condensates, it creates a vacuum as opposed to steam, where it gets warm and expands and has pressure. The system within here is such that within the system it is below the water line of the outside ambient water level, and it is such that the gases within the system here create a positive air pressure within here, forcing the water level again to a lower elevation. And the way right here, there is the design of a little hook there. It creates the air pressure to then bubble out of the system, and just creates this water to be under pressure, and that then comes over to this system, where here the entire system goes at a higher elevation than the roof line of the Queen's Chamber, and then doubles back down and comes out to the side, where if you look down from the north, or from above, this side being north, this side being the east, there is a outlet within the side there that is just below the water level of the entire system. That is creating a cap within the system, or the bubble within the system, to allow whatever it is that they are collecting, whether it be a light water or a heavier gas, or maybe a light gas, whatever it is that is being produced within the system, it is siphoned out through that, where they have all the extra pieces and parts there. I'm sure that's for loading and unloading and storage and whatever it is. That is the containment vessel. Within here, you will notice when you pay attention to the elevations that the rooms within here are such that they all coincide with both the elevations of the other parts of the system and how within the Osiris shaft it comes in at like an angle where you come down, have to go up and go down. These are all catches within the system to make sure that the product that they are capturing is siphoned and retained within this structure and produced either throughout the entire system. They may have multiple things that they are capturing, multiple gases and liquids, or there may be one root harvest. This part I don't know. That's why I want to recreate the system and actually get a much better understanding of whether it is just electricity or whether they actually have a product that they are capturing. And that's all I have. A quick overview. If you have any questions, you can always reach me. c@giza.ws or c@greatgizapayramid.com. You're welcome to call or text me. I'm also Skypeable, Whappable, WhatsAppable. Anyway, I try to put myself anywhere out there. If you're willing to actually have a true discussion, I'm willing to listen and talk to you. Have a nice day. If you have any input that you can aid me on, I'm totally willing to listen. Please check out all my other videos to have an understanding of the other intricate pieces. It's an awesome piece of machinery, and I just want people to realize that. Have a nice day. Bye.
Hey, I'm having this private conversation with Angel, and Angel is into pyramids, and my friend Amy. Hello, guys.
Hello, Karen and Angel.
Hello.
When Angel is telling us about Shell Castle, aren't you, Angel, and how it's all to do with time.
Well, they actually call it Coral Castle. But
sorry, it's really late for me in the morning here.
It's not a big deal. But yeah, one of its things is it is a calendar of sorts. It tells you a point in time, and it tells you that point in time because each one of these sections relates to a constellation and or one of the wandering stars, as they're called in the Bible. And it says when this star is here, and this constellation is here, and this star is there, and the moon is here. And when all that goes together, and you can use like software like Solarium or whatever it is to decide when that is a point in time. It is in some ways a chronological marking, and it really that's one of the things about it that it is quite unique.
Tell us the bit that you were telling us about the AD, BC, and that bit.
All right. Well, I went to both when they had them touring through Los Angeles, the Pompeii exhibit, and I went to the Dead Sea Scroll exhibit. And at both times when I was there, the caretakers of the exhibits were throwing in BCE and CE for the before current era and current era, and they were interchanging them with AD and BC, before Christ and Anno Domini, year of our Lord. And I was telling them that that's not really very accurate, because our current era is approximately 4,000 years prior. It would be 4,000 BC would be the marking of when our current era started. And they were like,
and also admitting that we have it as before Christ and after Christ.
Right. And the guy's like, well, who cares? I'm like, well, who cares? That's like,
You've just changed history in front of you. They've just changed the history.
Right. and I'm just saying that here it is that they're dictating how to do it. You listen to some of these talk shows and stuff, and some of the whodunit things and modern marvels and all that stuff, and or Ancient Aliens and stuff. I don't know if Ancient Aliens does it, but you watch some of these things, and they throw the word BCE or the anagram or whatever, BCE and CE, and they're interchanging them for AD and BC, and they're not a direct correlation. They're not a direct marriage.
And
Really,
you're what was it? What's the castle called again?
It's the Coral Castle.
You just said that. You just said that word twice there. Just saying that, by the way. It doesn't correlate.
Doesn't correlate. Yeah. Yes, the Coral Castle. It was built by a gentleman, Ed Lee Skalnin, and he understood astronomy. He also understood how to use an Enigma machine, and he also understood basic, I guess you would say, electronics, and how to generate electricity. And there's actually two awesome YouTube channels. One is built by one man, and it actually refers to the devices upon or within the Coral Castle Museum and how they are utilized. And he actually recreates them and shows how they can create a simple electric circuit by throwing magnetism back and forth. It actually
So
creates.
What does that mean then? He could light his cottage up?
Well, actually, he was using it to throw pistons or what they call solenoids back and forth for cutting tools and things like that. It was just simple DC power.
What, he was getting his house to do that for him?
His machinery. It's how he could get a lot of work done by one person by using machinery. And it was well before his time. You know, he was kind of a Tesla of sorts. It was kind of, since he was using DC power, it's more like Edison. But he had simple electronics going. And the other gentleman, the one that is really the one that talks about how to read the Coral Castle, his web or YouTube channel is talking to Lead Skalnin. Talk.
Is this stuff that you knew, or it's stuff that you learnt when you went there?
Well, I knew it prior to going there, and when I went there, I was able to see it for myself, and to be able to like gaze upon it and actually be able to witness it. If you're there at the right time, kind of like you could say Stonehenge, where at a certain time the moon will be at a certain spot within it. At a certain time, Saturn will be at a certain spot where you can see it as you sit in a certain seat over a certain spot. I mean, it all is designed to point to a specific point in time, not just any point in time. And it shows that you can use the celestial bodies to calculate and tell time. You say, like, attack when Saturn is here and the moon is there. You don't have to give a time in a day. It just, when that's there, that's the day you attack. Now, today, with our military precision, they want things down to the second. We want you both to attack at the same time, not like within half an hour of each other or an evening of each other.
Is this place as big as it looked? Like, was it bigger or smaller than it looks?
It's like a big rose garden. It's not really.
So most of it's outside then, or inside?
It's all outside. It is 100%.
Oh, right. So it's.
You can look at it on Google Maps.
What, from the stars? It's getting energy from the stars.
It's not getting energy from the stars. It's like, you know how a sundial works, right?
Right.
Obviously. If I say, be home when the sun reaches the number 2, okay? When that dial points to the number 2, it's time for you to be home. Well, in this case, there's a chair you sit in, and when Saturn is right above the arch of a certain that spot, that will happen once every X number of years, And when Jupiter is in a different spot from a different constellation, that will happen once every X number of years. And when all of them happen at the same time, will happen only once every, maybe 32,000 years or something. So you can point to a point in time just by saying when these particular constellations do this, this, and this, that is the point in time.
Wow, what do you make of that, Amy?
It's quite mind blowing. That's really interesting. Yeah. The government has constructed a time for us, but actually, we can use the sundials and things like that, and the stars and all to know.
Wow.
That's really brilliant.
I don't quite know what to say myself.
I know.
So what's it called again? I'm really sorry, I'm really tired. What's it called again, Angel?
Alright, here I'm trying to...
Coral Castle, isn't it?
Coral Castle is the name of it, yes.
So it's made out of coral then?
No, it actually isn't made out of coral.
Shells?
It's kind of like the spruce goose isn't made out of spruce. They call it the Coral Castle because it looks like coral, but it is actually some type of a sandstone. It itself has no energy properties. There's no crystals or anything in it. It just happened to be the stone that was in the area, and they just carved it right out of the ground. In fact, you can see right next to it where they cut it out, kind of like hypothetically how the Great Giza Pyramid was cut out.
Oh.
But these were actually cut right out of the ground next to it and propped up, and then the area that it left around it is used to kind of have a little moat around this garden. So it is kind of cool.
You glad you went there then?
Yeah.
I am glad I physically went there to actually see it. Was really nice. Share, here it is, share.
And sending me some pickies. And then we don't have to make this the longest talk that we've had, because it's all late for all of us. But you were explaining that you went to the Giza stones.
Yes, the Georgia Guidestones.
Yeah.
In his pictures, it looks like there's a mist round the stones. And when I was talking to him earlier on, we looked it up, and they've only been there since, 1980?
Yes, it was 1980s when they were actually constructed or put into I don't know, I guess erected, I guess is the technical name for it.
And what it was is that you told me that it doesn't say humans on there, it just says nature.
Well, one of the things upon it is that humans or that land is to be set aside, and that we have to work in conjunction with nature. So it's putting nature as a priority to.
Is that a good thing, though?
The whole Gaia bit, where.
Is that a good thing? So we don't have to be frightened of that. That's a good thing, isn't it?
Well, not if they use that as a verbal justification to exterminate the overpopulation for the betterment of the
nature.
Planet. Yes.
But they are anyway, because we've got hardly any bees. It's a problem with the bees. We need the bees to germinate everything, so that's a bit strange. But anyway, you sent me pictures of it. You can see it in English. You said that there's 8 sides, 8 different languages.
There are 8 languages. There's 4 erected stones, 4 stones that stand like 8 feet tall or something. They're pretty tall, maybe even taller. Maybe they're 10 feet tall. But and on those 4 stones, they have 2 large surfaces. and they're each one of
So
them
I
is
said
a
it looks a
different
bit
language.
like a what did I say it looked like? Not burial. What was it I said?
It kind of looks like a monument, like a something for a fallen soldier
Oh
or some
yeah,
sort.
yeah, like that, like a war memorial or something.
Yes. Yeah, you can get pictures of them all over.
It's a bit strange. They just turned up. So somebody just stuck them up then.
Well, there's a lot of mystery behind them. I'm not going to go there.
They just went
Not to say there
and they
isn't.
just appeared out of the ground.
Well, that happens to be to where they are is a city which is known for its masonry. It's marble. It is like the marble capital of the United States. And in some cases, I guess it's almost capital of the world. And so right there, you can get very inexpensive anything done in marble. Like all the restaurants have marble signs in front of them and everything because it's just the marble town. So anyway, they found this field in the middle of nowhere, and it kind of is in the middle of nowhere, and somebody paid for decades worth of maintenance on this field, and they erected this monument there, and there's a fund set forth that if any vandalism or anything is done is to pays for the upkeep and everything of it. It was all planned in advance, and I think the way it was funded, it actually is gaining enough interest so that the fund itself is very well funded. But the mean part is that it is like a set of rules and laws, but they're, no one really voted on them. I'm sure somebody did somewhere, but if in the event of some global catastrophe, somebody can just look to it and say, well, look, here are the like a what's that movie, the Hunger Game type scenario. Look, here are the rules, they're right here,
which popped out of nowhere.
Yeah, which kind of popped out of nowhere. We the people didn't vote on this, it's just there.
Well,
but a lot of people refer to those stones, don't they?
Yes, they do.
I mean, I was actually thinking they were much older than that.
Yeah, I did too. But from 1980, it is. They are. I mean.
Yeah, 1980.
Well,
40 years.
Yeah.
But they had to probably go up for now, didn't they? And what we're going through now.
That's what I've heard a lot of people say, that what's going on now kind of refers to the Georgia Guidestones it's based upon. I've heard that some people find the whole situation a little spooky, I guess, is the word I've heard people use to describe it.
Is that how you felt, Angel, or not?
Part of it cut out. I missed part of that.
So were you sort of enchanted? Did it freak you out? Did you think, wow, did it annoy you? These stones. You look like you were happy you were next to them.
I don't think it had any mystical powers or anything like that. What I think is it's just kind of the powers that be, kind of, it's something you can point at and say, look, it's right there written in stone. You can't say this is a conspiracy theory. It's right there in stone. I physically went there. I would have peed on it, except for there were people around there doing some yard work and stuff. But I really would have. I mean, I was seriously going to walk around the corner and pee on it or something, or something of that nature. But there were it's in a wide big field, and there were people like doing some maintenance work on on the
So they're
fence and
sort of
some yard
making
work.
it, I'm not saying they're making it into a stone circle or anything like that, but we now have this history of Avebury, and they're sort of, it's been turned into that, but it's only actually 40 years old, which is just a bit weird, really. So nobody passed the law. You should be able to find you someone passed the law, because you probably needed law to put the stones up.
Doesn't it talk about the population, depopulation, and those types of things, Angel? I thought.
Well, it does actually. It doesn't say depopulation, but what it does do is it says, you shall have less than, X number of people. And being that you have more than that, it implies it. It's kind of like if you have a school of 200 children, and you say, well, we'll have 4 classes of 10 children each.
Yes.
And it's like, well, what about the other 160 children?
Do you think the figures on the stone make up a figure that would have been there in the 1980s?
Oh no! In the 1980s, we had 5 billion people, 6 billion people. We're at 8 billion now. 7.5, 8 billion now.
And that's if we believe what they've told us.
Right.
True. Well, you could still, if you look at the square mileage of the state of Texas here in the United States, you can give every single person, even a baby, 1 square mile of land in Texas, and they'll still have some land left over.
Wow.
It's because they have us pushed into cities, but there's still big sprawling areas where there's no one.
Right. Right. They try to make us think that we have to really lower this population, I think, when, like you said, there's plenty of room for people and everything like that. And then, of course, you have the new goals to get our CO2 down to 0 or whatever. So it's all about it feels like they want to make their environment more important than the people. And and maybe that's how the idea I'm getting from a lot of what we're seeing, what's going on right now with everything. And you just hear about that they want this population controlled. And
isn't that what we're in right now, to try and do that?
Right, that's what I think.
Yeah, well, we're in the middle of Event 201 now.
Yeah.
Now, some of the other things about Ed Leedskalnin is he understood magnetism to a level that I'd say was on par with that guy with that tattoos all over his hands that does all the videos. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. The Globebusters have him on. Use clippets of his stuff all the time.
Right.
Anyway, he understood magnetism and how to manipulate it, which is really what an electric circuit is. You throw the magnetism one direction, you throw it the other way, and it just makes something wiggle back and forth. And using that, you can have something to be hammering, or have, it's a very simple thing. And he had some batteries in there. Batteries were around at his time. He was born in the 1800s. And died in I think he died in 1940, 1950. He only died half a century ago or so. So he was kind of current era, and DC power was in existence at the time, but the common person didn't even really know or utilize it. Except for if you were in a major city, because they had, like Washington, New York City had power since the late 1800s and stuff like that, and it wasn't until
Do you know one of the first places to get it was Russia?
Really?
That's if you
What
believe what the
time frame?
hardcore. That's what the internet's saying.
Right. What time frame?
It was before 10, 15 years before.
All right. So like the late 1800s.
No, about 1860, 1870, something like that. I did a video
Middle
on
1800s.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Middle 1800s. All right.
Yeah.
That's fine.
But actually, I think
That's-
electricity's even older than that. We probably had it in the 1700s.
Oh, Karen, I will tell you that electricity's been around since forever, and you know, which is why, at least here in the States, when you look at any old buildings and stuff like that, they usually have things like copper roofs, and you scratch your head and wonder why. But even today, if you were to take a copper roof, somebody took the time and expense to do it, and you just run a wire almost to ground, but then you take another wire from ground and you put them into like some sort of electrolyte or something, you can do electroplating with that. You can charge a battery. And just like I told you a long time ago, if I gave you a cell phone charger that right now you can put on a picnic table and it will charge your cell phone with a trickle charge. We use like, 0.3 volts or something like that to charge our batteries, and they last, for a decent amount of time. That little amount of power a decade ago, well, let's say a decade and a half ago, wouldn't charge a cell phone. You had brick cell phones. That little amount of power, you'd look at it and say, what are you going to do with that? You couldn't even light a light bulb because we didn't have LED light bulbs. Right now, I have a flashlight that I can charge up, that I can leave turned on for like 3 days straight because it uses an LED battery. An LED light bulb, which takes so little battery, but it's really bright. It's blinding bright. And I can leave it turned on for 3 freaking days.
Yeah.
The amount of efficiency that we have gone leaps and bounds in the past decade or two is quite amazing, how little amount of electricity can do more work than we ever really utilized. Your cell phone probably lasts for a day or two on a tiny battery. That is, we wouldn't see that little amount of battery as being useful 3 decades ago, when you had a cell phone that lasted 90 minutes on a battery that was half the size of the cell phone.
Mm. Right.
Okay.
Well, I actually wonder, I mean, I know this is slightly sidetracking a bit, but right now I'm talking to you and Amy in America, thousands of miles away from me with no time delay.
Right.
There's no wires between us.
Well, yeah, but you see, if we were on the moon, we would have to have like a good 6, 8, 10 minute, 10 minute, what is it, 60-second time delay or something like that, 30-second time delay, whatever it's supposed to be.
Right.
But it's really crazy. I just think that whatever we're using was here before, and they've just manipulated it, modified it. This is somebody else's technology we're using here.
Well, I'll tell you that anybody that ever raked hay, threw hay, using a metal pitchfork in hay, knew of static electricity. Anybody who worked around the corn mills and stuff like that, they knew about static electricity. Static electricity would start a hay fire, and would start the corn dust on fire. Boats, people, the reason that they used to, they would tap the metal thing on the boat to the dock was the same reason why they drop a wire off of a helicopter onto the deck of a boat before they set their foot out there, because static electricity, the deviation between the two of them, you step out, you can get a really nasty jolt. Same thing when you dock a boat, you can get a really nasty jolt, because when you're out there on the water, you'll get a slightly different static electric, variance than the dock and the ground itself. And all these things have been known since forever, but they were little things. You're talking a little spark, but that, when you drag your feet against the rug and you touch a doorknob, that's said to be like 150,000 volts. It's quick and it's instant, but it's 150,000 volts. That's really, when you think about it, that's a decent amount of power. It's instantaneous, but if you could maintain that forever, or get that going, that's power to play with. And again, in the old days, a decade or two ago, you couldn't do anything with that. Nowadays, you can use that to light an LED.
Yeah.
Because again, we're more efficient with our power. So you can have like a little solar panel that sits on your outside your window, with a little computer there with a little camera running off that solar panel LED, and poof, you have quote unquote free energy. It's because we're way more efficient with it.
Right.
If you have patience, you can electroplate with a micro amount of power and just let it sit there for a week or two before you know it's done. If you have patience, you can do anything. You don't need a lot of electricity. You just need, if you have time, you don't need a lot of electricity. You just use a little bit of electricity over time, and it adds up to a lot.
Yes.
I'll suggest to you that the knowledge of how to electroplate things wanted to be hidden from the general population. Otherwise, they would be able to, counterfeit the coins, which is the last thing the money changers wanted to do, was have any type of competition or any type of fear or having to second guess their own coins.
Right.
So if you hid power from the general population, or electricity, or how to utilize it, or what to do, the other things, as soon as we had indoor I was going to say washing machines and dryers, those things have static. Although I'm told over there in the UK you have less of it because you're moist, much more moist there. But here in the States, static electricity is a really big thing. Our forklifts and stuff
I
like
worked
that.
for somebody whose building was built into the ground. She said they were getting the electricity from the ground.
Right. Out here, all our forklifts and stuff like that have a chain dragging underneath them, just so that, if there is a static electric charge or anything, it grounds out.
Wow.
You
Also, just to say to everybody that Angel's into the pyramids in Giza, aren't you?
Yes, that is one of my favorite play toys.
Again, I know that you've told us this, but it amazed me to think that I never thought that the pyramids were on different levels, but the insides matched each other, whatever they were doing, positive, negative, neutral, if there was more pyramids, but they're on different levels, the ground, but they all match inside, like, what?
Yeah, it's one big chemistry set, and and you have all the beakers and stuff all at one elevation, and it's how they work within there that is kind of quite awesome. And even if you don't want to think that the pyramid was doing that because you have your head stuck in the tomb stuff, then if you look at the whole setup of it and just picture it in a high school laboratory setup, it's still quite awesome the way it all runs.
Yes.
Anyway, I'm not sure what else to say. The Georgia Guidestones are...
It seems that everything is to do with numbers and figures and electromagnetics, or something different than he thought it was.
I know.
Well, ironically, in a lot of ways, yeah.
That's why we talk to you, Angel.
Right.
Yeah, that one guy, the Talking to Ed Lee Scallon, he really explains how each one of them, he goes into details on saying, like, the one where there's like two beds, that's Gemini, and it says when Gemini is in this particular spot in the sky and this happens, that happens once every X number of years. And it's just like, if you say, on the third Friday in a month, if it falls on a after a full moon. How often does that happen? It's just it's a calendar, and it really it shows. The other part is it shows his mastery of moving large objects and being able to do all the physical work of cutting all those, because you can see where he chiseled them and cut them. That was a lot of work if one person sat there with a hammer and chisel for all that time. But if you had the electricity just sitting there hammering away at it while you're sitting there taking a bath or making yourself a sandwich or having some tea.
Is it just this stone has nothing to do with it? It's just it's been built out of that.
Yeah, it's just built out of that. It's not the stone. It's not like marble that has any electrical powers. The power came from, actually, he had a wheel that when you start spinning it, I guess you could sit here and say, if we want to talk about overpowering, over unity is its technical name, a free energy device. The wheel, when it spins, it throws the magnetic circuit in such a way that it generates enough power to maintain its spinning and give off a little bit of energy. Now, it's not a lot. It's not over unity by like leaps and bounds. He's not arc welding, but it's enough to move pistons back and forth to run an electrical circuit through a coil and move a piston forward and then move the piston back and then move the piston forward and move the piston back. And just by a lot of doing that, you can sit there and chisel away at a rock.
Well.
Wow, but then you're a bit more of like you sound more like you're an engineer when you're talking. Yeah,
well, you can assume that if
you've
you
got
want,
that kind of mental mind about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, look at somebody with a tire, a bicycle pump. You can pump up a car tire with a bicycle pump. It's a lot of sitting there and pumping, but the job will get done. If you're stuck on the side of the road and you don't mind taking half an hour to pump up your car tire, you can pump up a car tire with a bicycle pump.
Right.
So it is the same thing. It's just, a lot of little work to get the same thing done. You sit there with a little chisel just sitting there, bang, 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 bang. Eventually it's going to cut through that rock. And
right.
If it's no effort off you, it's just something sitting there, little motor just sitting there, hammering away at it. It really, really gets the job done. And having something piston going back and forth, you can do a lot of little things with that. If you want to say Mother Nature, but letting the flow of electrons do the work for you.
Yes.
Just seems that we've been taught all the wrong things, Angel.
Well, yes, because I really think that some of it is because they started with a story when they didn't have all the answers. So they started out of, naivety, not, ignorance of certain things. And they made a story, and then they have egg on their face if they change the story. And in some cases, I think we were told because they wanted to deviate from the truth, like the whole Benjamin Franklin bit. I mean, were you told how electricity was hypothetically discovered? Was it Benjamin Franklin? I know here in the States, it's Benjamin Franklin.
Yeah.
Discovered electricity. Okay? Well, if you ever recreate Benjamin Franklin's experiment, because we know now, because we can actually capture lightning blasts now. There are people in Arizona that's their company's job, is they take a little, when I say a little, like a 6-foot rocket with a coil of wire on the end of it, and they shoot it up into storm clouds, and they create lightning bolts. They give nature a path of least resistance to ground, and they can create a lightning bolt. They're like, Oh, you need a lightning bolt this afternoon? No problem. Okay, 3, 2, 1, launch.
Can I tell you something that's something completely different? It's nothing to do with what you're talking about, but I just want to ask you.
Go ahead.
What do you think
Throw it on
that
the table.
windmills were made for?
Windmills were made just the same reason as I'm saying with something working. If you have a spindle spinning, you can have a gin spinning. You can have a
What do you
grinding
think? But listen,
flour.
so yeah, but
just the same reason as I'm saying with something working. If you have a spindle spinning, you can have a gin spinning. You can have a
what do you
grinding
think? But listen,
flour.
so yeah, but they weren't. They're made to extract water. In fact, they say that Holland has actually reclaimed a quarter of their country back by having windmills. And then when I looked up England, I looked up windmills, and there's a great big register of windmills, but there's an awful lot of them right round Brighton, and Brighton got flooded. And then I think of Brighton, and it's got the first aquarium, it was the first Eden project, it's got all those Regency buildings. In fact, when they draw it, it's looking like it's from the sky. It looks like a castle without the barrier. It looks like a whole complex. And yet they had the first suspension bridge, but they built it as a pier, and they only had half of it. But it was actually anchored into the rock, and they had to sort of go into this rock and anchor it in. And then right at the top of it, the front of it, was a platform all made of marble, which would have weighed tons. And this is where the boats used to meet to go to Calais and all across. And it was actually quicker to go from Brighton than it was to go from Calais to get to Paris. And you're like, they knew that then. And then, of course, this storm turned up, and then this electric train, which went through the sea, moored there. It'd only been going a week. Oh, and then the pier gets...
Oh, is that the one with the really long legs?
Yeah, the daddy long legs. That's what we're told, because how do we know if any of it's true? But the pier had tons of marble on it. Tons.
Wow.
It's quite surprising it lasted so long without some storm ripping it up then. But it was half a suspension bridge. Now they've put the other half on, and it's called a suspension bridge.
Okay.
And what they're actually saying to you is the history line is, it was so difficult getting the bags of coal from the boats onto the beaches to give to the people. And at the same time, first aquarium, Eden project, suspension bridge, and that's not the only bridge, and they've all been destroyed, haven't they? Because, well, I'd call them Tartaria. There's one in Shoreham that's gone. These bridges have gone. They were beautiful. It's all very bizarre. And windmills, like, there's about 300 windmills were sort of plotted round Brighton, and they're to extract water.
Well, not all windmills were for water. Windmills
well, this is before trains have got. This is before trains have got here.
Right.
There's no roads.
But
just tracks.
Windmills. Right. Windmills just are, it's like a pinwheel, and when the wind blows, it spins something, and you use that to spin whatever you want. It's like a motor. To
extract water. I always thought they crushed grain. Well, no, they extract water.
You can have it do whatever you want. You can have it sitting there spinning something that goes down into a well shaft and is pumping up water. You can have it grinding grain. You can have it grinding wheat. You can have it turning...
But most people don't know that it extracted water. They just know that it crushed grain.
I've seen
when you ever see them, they're crushing grain, but they weren't. They were obviously a myriad of things, but they made these in the 16th and 17th century. They're quite amazing.
Right. It's just an engine. Just like a water mill when you have it next to a river or something, it's spinning. It's just turning a shaft. Now, what you do with that turning shaft is just like an engine turns a shaft. What you do from there, you can run looms, you can run printing presses, you can do whatever you want with it. You just have something that's a moving piece. You're getting free energy from the wind, you're getting free energy from water, you're getting free energy from whatever you're getting it from is just spinning.
A little different to what I thought, though. History keeps, I think what it is once you open yourself up and you realise things, you can see the different side of things, and things are nothing like they told us. Nothing.
Yeah, I've seen like a windmill out in the middle of a field that has a well next to it, and every time the wind blows, it pumps up water and it into a trough, and when that trough overflows, it dumps back into the into the well, and it's just that way. It's always full of fresh water, and the cows can come over to it. It's always got water in it because every time the wind blows, it pumps more water up.
Well, yes.
But they don't all have to pump water. It's just, when the windmill turns, it turns a shaft, and that shaft is like a motor. You do whatever you want with it from there. It can.
But none of these things are all the same times, are they? It's not like they're the same time as the pyramids. Although
who knows? They could have had windmills back then.
Martin Leakey's shown quite a few towns that have got pyramids, and also we were having a hangout with Stan, and what it was is that these big buildings, which are called, say, cathedral or complexes, they actually were looking at the stars originally. They weren't churches. And also on the buildings, a lot of buildings and churches have these same symbols. And he says, I can work out some of it, but I can't, I can work, that says the moon and the sun, but I don't know what all the symbols mean. And he's even found, like, stuff where we were doing 360 in the 1800s, 360. Pictures, photography kind of thing. It's all happening in the 1800s. And you're like, what?
Oh, there are some great artistry in the 1600s using pinhole cameras and a bunch of other. They were experimenting during the the rebirth era with all sorts of tactiles and paints and colors and color photography.
We don't know our past at all, isn't it? Really, because it's appeared. But they're not saying it the way it is, so there's this whole history that we don't know.
Well, we focus on Polaroid and Kodak, and the winners write history, but there were lots of little people who came up with other ideas of how to do films and photographies and laminations and stuff like that.
Because Martin Leakey found this book where they mapped out the whole entire nervous system in like the 16th, 1700s. Like they mapped the whole thing out. Like it'd be almost impossible to do it, and they did it. So these people were a lot more equipped and further on than they say they were.
Yes.
And they were using like churches, all these things. They all were doing the same thing as a bit like what you were talking about with Coral Castle, or they were making electricity or something. Something else was going on.
Well, I do believe that most of the church steeples, when you look at them, they're also made of metal, or the cross at least is metal, and then from there's usually a grounding wire that goes down to ground. However, that grounding wire didn't always go directly to ground, and I also believe that up until about the 1700s, what we referred to as holy water was actually like colloidal silver or something, and they were just using simple electrolysis to make colloidal silver, which, as I don't know if you've looked into it, but it's very antimicrobial and antibacterial, and all you take is a little bit of it. If you just put your finger into it once a week and they splashed it on you a little bit, it's very healthy. It's very good for you, and you don't need a lot of it. And that, even if they did that today, if every church said, hey, why don't we just make the holy water?
These other people, maybe Tatarians, they say that they never ate anything.
I don't know anything about that. You got to be blindsided on that one. But if today all the churches said, hey, let's make all our water.
You don't need food if you just dip your finger in the silver.
Well, you still kind of need enzymes and proteins. Colloidal silver.
Because what they're saying is, in Tartaria time, and I've watched it a few times, there's no toilets.
Okay.
Oh.
In all the old hotels, there can be rooms and rooms. They made hotels without toilets in them.
Okay.
It's a
Well,
bit, I know that's
like I
slightly
said, I'm
different, sort of off the subject there, but
afraid to know what they did with their poop then. But but if today the church has made all that holy water colloidal silver, and you put your fingers in it and touch it to your forehead, that's enough that it soaks into your skin, and it actually is good for you. And your fingers touching it, and if they splashed it on you, did stuff like that, it's amazing what that would actually do to help their
yeah, I do know people that
their
use it or
followers.
promote it and talk about it.
That would do quite amazing things, but they're not gonna. If they put copper doorknobs on the entrances and exits to hospitals, that's also antimicrobial. That would be so helpful. Every time somebody touches the doorknob, they sterilize their hands. I mean, there's just lots of little things they could do
Oh
if
my
they
goodness!
really
Well, yeah, like the
cared
Rife
about.
machine, for instance.
Yes, yeah, William Reichhelm and stuff like that.
The enigmas of the world.
Yes.
So, just changing the subject again, if underneath those pyramids there's a 5-mile tunnel underneath, what's that about then, Angel?
Well, I believe that's because they needed to control it's all like a big circuit board.
Yeah, that's right. Look, those things where you say people go and pee in them now, that looks like a battery thing. It just all looks like something totally different.
They needed to be able to, if you want to look at it, short certain of the containment, the water containment areas with other containment areas, and they did that by having channels dug under the ground level.
You know what? I actually said this to you one day, Angel, right? I noticed that this river had a sinkhole in it, and all the water had run into the sinkhole. It could have happened on the Nile.
You told me about that.
They used a sinkhole and they put the pyramid on top.
Nah,
what I'm saying is the hole was already there.
It could have been. They could have found a spot and built on an already piece of.
But they needed 3 of them, didn't they? Because there's 3 pyramids. It probably isn't true, but when I saw that, when this river had got a sinkhole in it and all the water had run into the sinkhole and there was a big hole there, I thought, is that how the pyramids got there? They wouldn't have needed to have dug the hole then.
Yeah.
They just need to build up and then build the bit on the top. But I do realise there's great big slabs of stone under the pyramid and you're like, what? Remember when we walked round, we did a virtual walk round with Angel and you could see that the stones went under. And also, what does it annoy you that other people think, so we've got the 3 big ones and then you've got the little ones and no one ever mentions the little ones?
Well, yeah, because they don't always make sense to their stories. They're just, there because they were extra queens or the queen's maids or, they give weird things to them. Because like I said, they come up to the story and they kind of have to stick to that story. Otherwise they have egg on their face. And they have to make stuff up about it. I was told originally that they were where they buried the kings. And they said, no, then they come to, no, they were monuments. The kings were actually buried over here. And they say, well, the funeral procession would do this and that and that. It was not made for any funeral procession. If you actually go in there and take a look at it or take a virtual tour, I have videos from people who have sent me videos with their GoPros and stuff like that. I mean, it's nothing about what they want to tell you of the story matches the physical structure. If you let the structure tell the story, look at the pictures, you get a completely different story.
I've asked you this before. Do you think there was another pyramid there?
Well, I think the one you're referring to is still physically there. You look at any pictures, the one of the smaller pyramids, the one next to the smaller of the 3 larger pyramids, is still a fairly well-shaped structure. And when you look at it, those are the 4 largest structures. Even that little pyramid is still pretty big. So when you look at it from the top of the third pyramid or from helicopter shots, I think I've actually sent some to you that I've gotten out of movie clips and stuff, and people who use drones and stuff to do flyovers or even helicopter flyovers, that it really looks like when you're looking down at the three pyramids that there's a fourth pyramid there, because that smaller pyramid next to the smallest of the pyramids still is large, and it does look like there are four pyramids.
And a lot of people might not know about the positive, negative, neutral that you were talking about.
Right. And when you're sitting there describing it to somebody, or when you were saying for somebody from the 1800s or 1600s or 1500s or whatever, when they're describing it, they're going to describe what they saw. Four very large structures. Four pyramids. So I could see that.
What about the other one?
Visually,
that they used in the 50s in the Cleopatra or whatever it was in the film. I've asked you that before. Where they've got it looks like you've got the entrance to a pyramid and then there is just the opening, and they used it in a film. And now it's all filled up and the army have taken it as a dump yard.
Oh, that one, the one south of it.
Yeah, what do you make of that?
Well, I think that marries the one that's actually also north of the structure that we looked at, that is very much the same. And I don't really know what it would be used for, but I do agree that is very unique in shape. What I'd really like to find out is its elevation, because I think it may be all part of one big water table, and things may need to be where they maintain.
Yeah, because I remember you telling us that they can go underground, and it's all to do with the water, isn't it?
Yes, and then they would have to maintain the system, probably, to put fresh water in, or maybe more acidic water, or more, something with new electrolytes or something like that as time goes on. And I'd really need to look at it in comparison to the elevation of the rest of the system, because it may be a flush station or something. I think it was a very large.
It's not our old system. Up the road I've got a poo factory. It's not one of those, is it?
No, it's like where you flush out a brake system or something in a car. You have to have somewhere to get stuff out of the system, air bubbles, things like that.
We spoke to Joey Rocker. I don't know if you know him, but a few weeks ago, me and Amy, or whatever, it was me, but he basically was saying that the pyramid stones were made there, that they actually cast the stones on site.
Well, I've been saying that forever. I believe one of the first times I spoke with you on a thing, I said there were three main factors that were kind of clinchers on it. Number one, back in I think it was the late 90s or something like that, they did a bit where they took them to a electromagnetoscope or whatever it is, thing where they can tell the orientation of the electrical fibers within the stone, the metallic particles within the stones.
Right.
And they were trying to assume the overall orientation of north and south and stuff like that, so that they could tell what the orientation of the rock was at its formation. And from there, they can find a rock quarry and find one that fits that orientation and say, oh, this rock came from this quarry. See how good we are, pat us on the back and make us all happy. And when they did that, they got weird results because they got sporadic answers. They didn't get an orientation. So they threw their hands up, kind of like the Michelson-Morley thing. They got an answer, but the answer didn't fit what they wanted it to be, so they threw their hands up and said, well, I guess we did it wrong. Then the next one, they did something where they threw electricity through it, and by throwing electricity through it, they get results back of saying what is inside of the rock, kind of the makeup of it. And they found it to be infused with water. Natural rock in the bowels of the earth aren't infused with water because they're created at thousands of
Is
degrees.
this salt water?
Well, I can't tell you if it's salt water.
Because I don't think a lot of people knew that. We did it. I think it might have even been with you when we realised that actually, if you put salt water into things, the things last a lot longer than if you put fresh water in.
Right. Well, I think they were able to tell that it was infused with water. I don't know if they actually looked into salt being in the mixture, but the fact that it was infused with water really kind of denotes that it's a composite, a fabricated rock and not a natural rock that was quarried.
Mm.
The other thing they did is they hence found out within the past decade that they also have air bubbles in them. So when you put all of that together, these were not rocks formed in the bowels of the earth under thousands of degrees and millions of pounds of pressure. These were rocks that were mixed and fabricated on site.
Wow. Yeah.
Mm.
So I will still
all those
stick
videos I've watched
to my
of how
belief.
they made it and how they
Yeah, that's fine. They're all red herrings. They're all red herrings, and they're all based on a story, and they're coming up with these things based on a story that they were quarried. How would they bring in these quarried rocks? Well, here's how we could bring in these quarried rocks. Here's how we could build the Hoover Dam. They can build the rocks in Pennsylvania.
How long do you think it would have taken them to build them then, Angel, if they're making the stones?
Well, let's put it this way. They say the Great Giza Pyramid is like 88 million cubic feet, or 88. It's 88 something. 88,000 or whatever it is. The Hoover Dam that sits in Arizona and holds back the Colorado River, and I say to this day, I think is the largest Lord Kelvin drop water generator there is. But either way, is the same size within like 100,000 of whatever it is. If one's 88,000, the other one's 89,000 cubic feet or whatever. It took us 7 years from the time they broke ground to completed the Hoover Dam, and that included 1 year of building a mini dam to first make the base of the dam and diverting the Colorado River. So in essence, it took 6 years. So if it took 6 years, a past project, to build something of a like time, there's no reason it wouldn't take 6 years to build that of a like time. However, I think it's not just the Giza Pyramid, it's the entire plateau that is part of this system. But that doesn't mean they couldn't have been working in conjunction on all of them. Or then again, they could have taken a slow project like they did with like the Aswan Dam, where they take some 20 years to build it.
It's a bit different, those ones, isn't it? Because it does look like a battery packs on the side of them as well, where, Silbury Hills is the pyramid, and you've got Avebury. I know that could be the other part of it, but that's a stone circle. And, those stones, they have different frequencies in them. When you douse them, they go up and down and up and down. So there's different energies in those stones. So goodness knows what it really all is, because are we looking at it petrified? And in its original state, it would have looked different, but it's petrified.
Well, that, and also time has probably worn away.
Could it have been crystal?
The hills?
I suppose you're making the stones, aren't you? But could it have been something else and petrified?
Are you talking about the pyramid, or are you talking
about things? Hills? If you watch, is it Wise Up? Not Wide Awake, Wise Up. He reckons that sometimes mountains could have been buildings, and it's all meshed together. And how could a rock have rust coming out of it? It must have been something else. And then he takes you to other buildings, and you think, wow, this looks like a submarine. You're in a submarine, but it's rock. So these were other things. So maybe we've petrified a few times. I mean, it's hard to think that Silbury Hill is a step pyramid, but you wouldn't know that now, and it's got grass all over it. Where did that grass come from? It was a step pyramid.
Well, I do think fabricated. I do think it was fabricated as well. It's a fabricated structure.
And also, she talked about the fact that there's like, I call it a positive and a negative on Silbury Hill. One comes in and one goes out. But those bits were used. And I'm thinking, wow. I mean, when you think about it, it's just a lump of earth to everyone else. But actually, it's not. It's something amazing.
Well, yes. And if you could actually recreate it and show that it can create a separation of different states of energy, that's power. Anytime you have a separation of energy, if you short the two of them together,
well, she said there was more of them around, but they've gone.
Okay.
You're like, what? And do you know something? I was on a train going down to Cornwall, and I went past, and I looked in distance, and I said, look, there's another pyramid. There's what I can't remember where it was on the train journey to remember where to look when I came back, but I was going, there's a pyramid just there. And also I've realised that Primrose Hill in London is a pyramid. It's really strange. Silbury Hill, Primrose Hill. So it's just they're covering up so much of the stuff. It's got a capstone on the top of it. So it's definitely something, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Well, I do think in some cases they knew there are people that understand that electricity is all around us. I mean,
free energy.
You can't say that if you took a balloon 100 years ago and rubbed it on somebody's head that you couldn't get static electricity. Static electricity has been around since forever and ever and ever, and it always has been and it always will be, unless the environment changes, it's really moist or something like that. But static electricity has existed forever, and just because we didn't know about it or know how to control it doesn't mean if somebody had a device like a Wimshurst generator or something like that 100 years ago, that if you spun it, it wouldn't still make electricity, because it will still do the same thing it would 100 years ago, because static electricity is there. So it's just not like as soon as somebody discovers it, then it exists. It's always been there.
Dielectric. Gets quite confusing, doesn't it? Also, Angel,
Yes.
as you're here, I know I've asked you this before, but there's so many videos ago. You also take an interest a little bit on some of these other pyramids, like in South America, because they have like platforms, so that people were like arriving.
Yes, I do think they're pretty evidently some sort of an airport. Some of them, just like some of the other ones.
Is that what the little pyramids at the Giza are about? They're like, it's the same sort of thing. That's a different thing.
I don't believe that would be what their uses are. I do think what the whole system is intended to control the ambient static electricity on the surfaces of the structure, to make sure that each one is
because
different.
Those pyramids are like music.
And you just work with the difference between one amount of static electricity and another amount. And if you have a difference, then if you were to shake hands with somebody, you get a zap. If somebody has a different ball of static
what you need to do is you need to go to Egypt and take or put back whatever it is. What is it? You want them, you want to take off that thing and put the proper one on top so that it does what it's supposed to do.
Well, there's nothing on top. If you take that off, if you were to take it off within a short amount of time, people would, when they stood up there, their hair would be standing up on end like you're standing on the surface of a big Van de Graaff generator.
I'd like to see you up there with your hair standing on end.
I'd have to let my hair grow back. But,
so, Amy, we've been talking massive. Is there any questions you want to say or anything? Angel usually knows it. He's quite a myriad of information, and I love having him. I said, well, talking about
a plethora A plethora of useless knowledge.
Oh no, it's fascinating.
Better than doing
Wow.
deep fake, isn't it, Amy? For a change.
I mean, it's really fascinating, all your knowledge about the pyramids and electricity and everything.
I'd say you know your stuff, Angel. I love talking to Angel about these things.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just listening, taking it all in. It's a real education for me. You know, it's just brilliant. And I never knew. I just always thought pyramids were the burial chambers or whatever for the.
Well, as long as they keep telling you that, you're never
Right.
going to really look into it.
Yes.
You know, they keep telling you the globe is round and the Earth is round. As long as no one ever questions it, you're never going to really look into it. But if you actually take the time to look at the structure, use your own eyes, explore it, take the Google Maps and drop a guy there, just walk around it for like a day, using the virtual reality that Google can offer you there, take advantage of the thing. There's a couple of YouTube videos. My favorite one would be the GoPro2015.giza.ws. It's a guy who did a GoPro video in 2015, and I have a link to it right off my domain. And it's a 90-minute video. Just turn the volume down because he cusses a lot, and just watch it. Just watch it, look at it, get a good view of the machine, of the structure itself. So when somebody tells you, oh, this would have happened to that, you look at it and say, I've seen the thing. The story you're telling me doesn't make sense.
They've had fire or something, haven't they? Burning inside.
Yes, you can see they've cleaned it. They've steam cleaned it, and hot, high pressure washed it and stuff like that. But you can still see where there are definite areas where there's scorching of the walls and things like that, where you can tell that something was happening in there. Now, when I tell you how I feel the whole structure was working, and I tell you what I think everything was happening and where it was happening, you can see the evidence of the reactions I refer to there. I'm not making up. I'm not saying like, oh, and then they decided to burn the king right here on the center of the thing for no reason at all. They decided to do it. Everything I'm saying is about how I feel the structure was working is based on what would naturally occur. If you had like a flamethrower and I say the flame will be about like 4 inches off the end of the tip and I light it and poof, there it is. That's just what nature does.
So if they were lining up, so that's what I'm saying, they were all on different levels, but if you could see a cross section through, you'd see they all lined up, positive, negative, neutral.
Yeah, the internal guts are all at an elevation that they interact with each other when you're dealing with water, which always does its best to find its level.
So basically what we need to do is we need to get Angel there so his hair's up in the air, and then we need to get the water in.
Yeah, we need tons of water, more than they used to do fracking.
Do you know what it reminds me of? It sort of reminds me of like Terminator, when Arnie turns up and the machines are there to make the oxygen and he's got to turn them on.
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah. So, Angel, how did you get into your study of pyramids?
Well, I have to say one day I just listened to, it was actually one of Chris Dunn's things, and I said, well, this sounds interesting, but it just doesn't really hold water with me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I actually started to look at physical pictures of the structure, I'm like, what he says just, it sounds great, except for the physical evidence to back up what he's suggesting isn't physically there. He's ignoring pieces that are there, and he's completely, making up pieces that aren't there,
Do you know, they even had to stick in their little story because it's through different looking. I was looking up Highclere Castle, which is what they've used as Downton Abbey. that's what they use in the television program as Downton Abbey. They use that building, and when you look in the history to that, it's where politics used to be. They used to have, like, where they have Parliament now. That's where that was. I'm not saying it was the same. It was earlier on, but that's where they used to have it. And then it also became a hospital. And then you look at, what's one of the big families, Amy?
Oh, the Rockefellers?
Something like, whichever one it was. So the woman who was now, she became, I think she's hurt, sorry, my little dog's hurt her claw. She's just hurt her claw, I think, Ellie. So basically she was the illegitimate child, Rothschild. She was an illegitimate Rothschild that had a lot of money. She lived there, and she's the Duchess, but like the 7th one, whatever number they are now. She was a few before, because obviously it's Second World War. And then her husband was the one that was supposed to have found Tutankhamun. But when you go to look for any pictures of him finding them or being with them, you never see him with them. Never. It's like it didn't happen.
Well,
he might have paid for it or something.
yeah.
I don't know what it is. But there's no pictures of him with the tombs.
Huh. Well.
And then you find out his wife was a illegitimate Rothschild. I mean, in a way, she was quite magnificent, you know, because her dresses and, you know, I don't know, it's just a bit weird. The whole thing's a bit weird.
Yes. Well, you're talking about the...
Yeah, so that was really strange to see all that. It's like there's no pictures of him with the tombs.
Right.
So that doesn't look real either.
Well, I think when it comes to...
He's all about the burial side, or that they found these, you know, it's all like burial tombs, but it's not true. If it fits into what Angel says, it's just another story.
Right. I wouldn't trust anything about the Rothschilds, whether she's illegitimate or not, that family. So, what they have done to the world with taking over the banks and so forth. But
none of our past seems. I think Angel said it anyway. The ones that won write the history, whether it's the truth or not. That's the other thing. I know we're changing the subject a little bit again, but we suddenly got into the Barbary ships. Have you ever heard of those, Angel?
Barbary ships?
Barbary ships. What it is, you know, like everybody's going on about, well, they were the slaves, but it actually was, we were all slaves one way or another. At the same time, where we're running the world and ruling, and Queen Victoria and India and all that, at the same time, top of Africa, we've got Tunisia, Algeria, there's more of them, there's 4 of them up there. They were the pirates, and they had a certain section of sea they went to, but just before, say, Independence Day, everybody had insurance policies taken out, so you couldn't take the cargo or the passengers off that ship, and you couldn't take the cargo and passengers off that ship. But with Independence Day, it broke those insurance policies, and then suddenly everybody's at war, and that leads round to Tripoli. And it's like, what? It's like, I thought we were running the world. No, we were the slaves. They were capturing the people and selling them. Black, white, it doesn't matter what it was.
Right. Yeah.
And they suddenly come into play, and it's like, I thought we were running the world. I thought we just sort of overtook the world and England ruled the world. It's not true. Well, they're running us, we're running them. It's all a bit weird.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to be a passenger. And then we find out that we were obviously offered to go to America for that bit, but when you get there, somehow, I think most of the buildings were there, and they quarantine the adults and take the children, and it's been going on ever since. Hitler was part of that. Destroying the Tartaria buildings. That's just some of the things. Don't forget, there's loads of other things, because they do everything in a go. But the Tartaria buildings, Berlin was beautiful until they bombed them all. And then, of course, the children. And, you know, when you look at it, doesn't it seem stupid that they were farming the children out in the UK and sending them, say, down to Brighton and putting them nearer to the bombs? You know, like everything's back to front when you actually wake up and realise what it's all about.
That's right. You're right, Karen.
I mean, it's just all bizarre. The whole of the Barbary ships have really got me because they were making everything and anything slaves, taking the cargo, and you're like, what? And at the
That's
same
right.
time, they were in the Ottoman Empire, might have taken over bits of that, and at the same time, there's Tartaria. So you're like, what? Angel, wake up! Angel! Oh my God, he's gone to sleep. Angel!
Angel.
Angel! This is what happens when you have a late discussion and then turn it into a hangout.
Oh, yeah.
We can't put this out. Angel, you were on call till 5 minutes ago. We have been going for an hour and 20 minutes and we did get lots of information out. I love Angel's talk. Angel, are you waking up?
Me too.
No, I think we'll have to stop the hangout. I'll have to just say that Angel fell asleep.
Okay.
Right, at this point, right, it's actually really late for me and it's really quite late for America as well. Angel fell asleep, but we're going to say goodbye now.
Oh, yes. Oh, goodbye, Angel.
Good night, guys. Keep it flat.
Oh, Angel, you did really well because I think you were quite tired before we did the hangout and then you did an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh, yes, it was brilliant.
Thank you so much for sharing all that. And
yes.
yeah, I need some more photographs, Angel, of Corfe Castle with you.
I'll see what I can do about digging them up.
Thank you. And I really enjoyed that. But I know Angel a bit, and I know he knows about all this stuff, but I'd never realised those pyramids were all like it was. When did they ever teach you that? Angel taught me that.
I know. Just
Did you see the video I did about a week or two ago?
Which one's that? I've been putting a channel together after they deleted me.
Yeah, I know. You've been busy. Mine, I just did one about a week or two ago. I don't do very many, so it's easy to tell which one it is. But it kind of goes over the whole plateau quick and easy. It's only 6 minutes.
Is it something that you're talking, or would you like me to stick it in this video?
You can go ahead and stick it in there, but I gotta go now because I am falling asleep.
Okay.
Can I just ask you one thing? Did you ever put anything on your channel about the Giza stones and Corfe Castle, or is it something that is
No,
pictures?
I just focus on the pyramids. If I throw other things in there and somebody doesn't believe it, then I just lose them. So I'm trying to keep it focused on one subject.
Right.
Okay, then, yeah, send me a link then to that video and I'll stick it in this hangout because obviously I'm going to have to go to bed now and I need a few pictures to put in the video.
I'll probably time, but I got to go to sleep now. I really am. I gotta go.
Angel, thank you so much. Amy, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome, Karen.
He's gone.
Yeah, he was, because he was getting pretty sleepy, but then he kind of like really, I think he was so excited talking about that stuff, that he came like really awake for that. He's very brilliant man about all his subjects. I was just like listening, taking it all in, he's very smart.
Yeah, I mean, our conversation's been going on for over 2 hours now, and I suddenly decided to turn it into a hangout, but I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I know, me too.
See, the Unscrambled Sun and Moon, the Truth Channel, we know some interesting people. It's great.
I know, it is. I know. What, do you know what state he's in? Is he in Florida?
No, he's above Florida.
But he's on the East Coast.
Yeah.
Like me, yeah. Oh.
I think we did this before, Amy. I think you worked out that he's a couple of hours away from you.
Oh, okay.
We might be 2 or 3 hours away from you, but he's not He's a neighbour with the size of
Oh,
America. He's close by.
is it Pennsylvania or
I can't remember now.
it might
There's too
be
many
Virginia.
states in America.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
we had to learn the map, in school. We had to memorize where all the states were. It wasn't easy for me, but I got it down. I got them all right, but I probably couldn't do it. I'd have to study. I know.
Anyway, that was
But
a really good hangout, and obviously it's Amy's second hangout of the night. It's all action on our end, isn't
I
it?
know, right? I know.
We've got one on Saturday with Vertek, Jin, you and me, and hopefully Cece he hasn't seemed to have seen my messages, but there is him. I must write to Cece. And then I'm going to do one next Thursday, but I'm going to leave that one until it actually happens, because obviously this person's coming to my house to have a hangout, so I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, is that Marion?
With Marilyn, yeah.
Yeah, oh, that'd be nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, I've really enjoyed that. That was good, wasn't it?
It was good. It really was. Great. That was nice. We didn't plan it, but then just kind of the way what Angel was talking about, it was a great idea to record.
What we did was we opened up a Facebook chat thing, so that's how we've been talking, but obviously it'll be a hangout for everybody. But it was really great. I do need to go to sleep now, Amy.
Oh, I know, Karen, I know.
But anyway, we stopped the hangout. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Mwah to Angel, mwah to Amy, and mwah to the chat room.
Yes.